Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, Russians and Negroes, written between late January to early February 1913 in the Lenin Collected Works. Between pages 543 to 544, Lenin states this as follows. What a strange comparison, the reader may think. How can a race be compared with a nation? It is a permissible comparison. The Negroes were the last to be freed from slavery, and they still bear more than anyone else the cruel marks of slavery, even in advanced countries. For capitalism has no room for other than legal emancipation, and even the latter it curtails in every possible way. With regard to the Russians, history has it that they were almost freed from serf bondage in 1861. It was about the same time, following the Civil War against the American slave owners, that North America's Negroes were freed from slavery. The emancipation of the American slaves took place in a less reformative manner than that of the Russian slaves. That is why today, half a century later, the Russians still show many more traces of slavery than the Negroes. Indeed, it would be more accurate to speak of institutions and not merely of traces. But in this short article, we shall limit ourselves to a little illustration of what we have said, namely the question of literacy. It is known that illiteracy is one of the marks of slavery. In a country oppressed by pashas, Pershevikists, and their like, the majority of the population cannot be literate. In Russia, there are 73% of illiterates, exclusive of children under 9 years of age. Among the U.S. Negroes, there were, in 1900, 44.5% of illiterates. Such a scandalously high percentage of illiterates is a disgrace to a civilized, advanced country like the North American Republic. Furthermore, everyone knows that the position of the Negroes in America in general is one unworthy of a civilized country. Capitalism cannot give either complete emancipation or even complete equality. It is instructive that among the whites in America, that proportion of illiterates is not more than 6%. But if we divide America into what were formerly slave-holding areas, and American Russia, and non-slave-holding areas, and American non-Russia, we shall find 11 to 12% of illiterates among the whites in the former and 4 to 6% in the latter areas. The proportion of illiterates among the whites is twice as high in the former slave-holding areas. It is not only the Negroes that show traces of slavery. Shame on America for the plight of the Negroes. I'll challenge you all, if you like, to go look up the late 19th to early 20th century when Russia was allowing African Americans in their country to do work. W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, and Claude McKay, who of course was Jamaican born, all traveled to at the time, communist Russia. There were even films with black movie stars from the United States made in Russia at that time. Now, before I continue this video, this time I have to use the word disclaimer. I know I use it a lot, so let me say this. It's not just a disclaimer, it's a fact. I'm neither Marxist nor communist nor socialist. I don't believe in any of those three philosophies. They don't fit my existence. They don't fit my life. I'm not just saying that. That's what I truly believe. No system, not even capitalism, is perfect, but I definitely want nothing to do with the further three. Also, we're going to discuss Comrade Putin because that's what this is about. And if you're easily offended, I would get off this video now. If you read the Bible, okay, it says Daniel was instructed to close the books until the end. And you know what I mean if you're Bible believing, okay? But Jesus, I believe himself, said, have no images of him. So if you have a blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus in your house or a Jesus with an afro, by biblical accounts, you are committing idolatry. Don't get mad at me if you choose to believe in that Bible. It's in there. I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you everything. Go look it up. Okay, now, so this is the one thing I think someone else may have touched on it, but I wanted to touch on it. Because remember, Lenin, that was over 100 years ago now, and now we have Vladimir Putin. Does anybody else besides myself feel like Russia is either low-key trolling black Americans with this black Jesus, or is this something that maybe he's low-key reminding us to know who we really are? Because to me, I was very indifferent to photos of Jesus in black because it's idolatry anyway. But the thing about it is, I'm not going to sit here and say that color doesn't matter because Cesare Borgia was shoved down our throats for centuries. You all know who Cesare was. Some of us had relatives, namely my grandma years ago when I was a little girl for the house burned down. I can remember sitting there staring at that photo of Cesare, not knowing it was Cesare, and thinking that this is weird. Because what that photo conveyed and what the Bible said Jesus really was are two different things. See, here's the thing. I read you that speech, that short reading entitled Russians and Negroes, written by Vladimir Lenin. Because if you go study late 19th, early 20th century black Marxism, I first learned this at the University of Washington, when for a short time black Americans were invited into Russia to actually get jobs when it got economically bad here. And because, of course, you know, there was Jim Crow at that time in some states. It was still de facto segregation in the North. But black people did live in Russia, black people from our country. If you study Stalin, if you study Lenin, and I'll tell you, Stalin was racist. He allowed black American Negroes in, but suppressed Africans and Koreans who were Russian-born Koreans, meaning they're Korean ethnically, but were born in Russia. So there's a history of Russia, I feel like, trolling the United States over its treatment of us as a people, and rightfully so. They were one of the few historically white nations that did so. So if you look up Claude McKay, W.E.B. Du Bois, and I think it was Paul Robeson, you'll see that they performed And there were films of black Americans made in Russia. So to some degree, we got a little bit of a different treatment than some Africans that went to Russia in those early days. Okay, if you're smart enough to know, Putin is not telling us anything we don't know, but you have to get the propaganda and the agenda behind it. Why tell us something we already know now? And I hope y'all don't get mad at me, those of you who may be Hebrew Israelite leaning, because I'm not trying to offend you. Comrade Putin isn't telling us anything we didn't know. But it's real convenient that those photos are coming out now. What's the motive behind it? See, everybody getting up in arms. See, we told y'all Jesus was black. You're getting yourself up in arms about something you already knew. Because that book pretty much tells you still got to be saved by grace, no matter what your skin color. But that's not what this video is about. Go read the Bible for yourself. Go read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John for yourself. Okay? Because I'm Old and New Testament. So I know some Hebrew Israelites might watch this one day and take offense. See, you got to be careful about when people choose to release things, because I have a hard time believing that Comrade Putin didn't know about these photos before he released them this year. See, I have to thank Mr. Richard Burns, and I hope he doesn't get upset with me, because propaganda is a interesting thing. See, the reason why blacks who want from this country, black people who wanted to be communists, gave up and eventually made their way back here, is it because at the time a lot of them had Pan-Africanist views. And there came a time when Ethiopia was invaded and Haile Selassie was dethroned the first time by the Italians. Black American Negroes didn't take that too well and got out of Russia because they were not happy that Russia supported Italy at that time. Don't believe the hype about Black Jesus. There's a reason why. If you take it from a biblical perspective, you knew this was coming anyway. But I'm not stupid. These people have known these things are in archives. The question I want everyone else to ask themselves, what else about our history is truly hidden in archives, and what else do certain people know? Don't get yourself up in arms. Be careful about propaganda. And go study 19th and 20th century black Marxism.